The NBA season is still really shaking up, but we got rumors around which teams could be buyers and sellers as the season goes on, and these are the ones to watch as the trade deadline gets closer and closer. We'll talk about all and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. My name is Haize. Most importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this today. We got an article coming from Bleacher Report in regards to the teams that are already reported to be buyers or sellers as they're looking to trades. And as players become available, we're going to start off with the sellers in this case. And so far, the buyers in this case. I'm going to start off with the Houston Rockets. Now, this one comes from Tim McMahon from ESPN. He says this: Houston's are wanting to take a big swing in the trade market. And so this is something that we've heard kind of before, right? That they could be willing to move off some of their younger players to get a big name in here. And reportedly, this comes from CBS Sports' Bill Retner, who says that the Rockets are interested in teams and players like Giannis Antetokounmpo or Jimmy Butler if those players do become available. Now, that's an interesting standpoint, right? Now, take all these rumors with a grain of salt. Now, but the Houston Rockets do have a base of assets they could use to trade for a disgruntled star if they come available. And reportedly, the Houston Rockets have already tried to pursue some in a little while before, but those pursuits kind of fell short. And so they will have players like Alfred Sengun, Jalen Green, and things like that the teams will want to be invested in if they can. But the fact of the matter is that I personally don't feel the Houston Rockets should be looking to move off any of those pieces unless they're getting somebody who surefire makes them a championship contender. And I just don't know if those players are going to be out in the market for the Houston Rockets. Now, I could be wrong on that, but when you've doubled down and you basically sign the players that are in your core and you're starting off the season solidly enough, right? These players are starting off solidly enough. There's something to be said about wanting to allow these players an opportunity to see it out, because if you kind of can hold off on trading for the star, right, and just build, you have a solid mix of veterans there. You have some very good young and upcoming players that have such a bright future ahead of them. That's where I look at it and say sometimes teams can try to pull the trigger too early and it actually hurts them, but they do have a nice set of young asset players. When you look at this team, Reed Shepherd, Cam Whitmore, Jabari Smith, Amen Thompson, Jalen Green, Alfred Sengun, like these are all players that are under the age of 23. You could throw into that as well Tari Eason, who's right at 23 years old. So they have really good young players and they got some solid vets and Dylan Brooks and players that have helped them. So, you know, if the Houston Rockets are really looking to make a swing early to try to bring in a vet piece, I personally think they just got to practice some patience. Practice some patience, because that star may develop on your team, and I think we've already seen some signs that they are. But even then, man, if you do, just make sure you get it right. Make sure that you get it right. And so understand the thought process between a team like the Houston Rockets that could want to do that. They have the coach in place as well that's going to be wanting to, to possibly, make some moves or whatever. But I just think personally, again, I just think that the Houston Rockets need to practice some patience unless a big deal is out there. But even Giannis Antetokounmpo, like, yes, make no mistake, Giannis is an amazing talent. And you got to really be sure that if a trade like that were to come up and you send away a Jalen Green or, God forbid, I think you keep Sengun at that point. At least I would like to think that you do. It's intriguing. It's to say the least. It's intriguing. They have the picks. They have the young talent. Jimmy and Kawhi, which is another player listed in this article that they could be interested in. I wouldn't want to take a shot at either one of those players. No knock on those guys, especially Jimmy Butler as a Bulls fan. He's a former Bull. I love what Jimmy Butler has turned into in the NBA, but he's clearly on a decline in his career. And I just don't think you make that swing there. But that's my opinion. But let me know what you guys think down below on the Houston Rockets potentially being a seller as the season moves on. Next up, the Golden State Warriors. Now, this is no surprise. I think we know that it's come out that the Golden State Warriors, they pursued Paul George. They pursued everybody that they could in the offseason. And more rumors are just picking up that they'd be willing to move a Kuminga or another young player if it meant them getting a veteran piece that they can pair with Steph Curry. Now, how much are they willing to sell off on that, right? Moses Moody, who got an extension, Kuminga didn't get an extension. So, of course, he's a name that has already kind of been floated out there that the that the Warriors are more open than ever to trading Jonathan Kuminga. We talked about a couple of episodes ago the rumors around Jimmy Butler being an interest for the Golden State Warriors. So there's no doubt right now that the Warriors are looking to be buyers at the trade market. They're trying to get some piece in here to pair with Steph Curry. But, with this team, and I would be one of the people that says that this team has been well above the expectations that I personally had for them coming into the season. They may be another team that needs to kind of play it safe or play some patience. But then again, who's to say that this team has the time to have patience? Steph Curry is 36 years old, right? He's over the getting to the place of being over the hill, even though his production when he's healthy is still absolutely there. But this is a team that I think that you risk the chance of you having a team that's extremely solid. That's extremely solid, and that you have some young pieces that you can grow and develop with. You move those off, and then your windows just it maybe it gets wider, but for a shorter amount of time, because like you just saw Steph go down for an extended amount of time. Could you imagine if you have a Steph and a Jimmy on this team and they both go down? Like, what do you have at that point, right? So again, the Warriors are one that I could understand. I understand why. I don't necessarily agree with the reasons why listed that they could be looking to be buyers at the trade deadline. But this is the Warriors are a team that the decision makers there, they've been searching for impact players for a while. And so, they feel like they have a chance right now with Steph Curry and the way he's still able to produce, but he's battling an ankle injury. So it's like, I don't know. I can understand both sides of it, but where I stand right now, my personal opinion, not that it really means anything. If I'm the Warriors, I'm kind of holding them right now. If anything, you got to want to, I get it. You want to try to put a competitive team out there. It seems like you have one, though. Like, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think on that down below. And then the last team that was listed here as potential sellers, which kind of surprised me considering all the overhaul that they had this offseason, was the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, this one's listed by Jake Fisher. He says this: the 76ers remain willing to pay, add in another piece right now. A lot of willingness to go deep into the tax if the right guys are available. And so, they also feel this, saying that since George was a free agent addition and Embiid and Maxey were draft picks, there are still plenty of assets to put in play on the trade market. The 76ers only have sent out 2 of their own first-round picks, and they have 2 others incoming, plus a 2029 swap with the Clippers that carries only a top 3 protection. So it seems like the 76ers are really looking at their assets, and they're saying, we got a chance to go in even more. And when you're sitting in a time where you got Joel Embiid and Paul George both out with injury, you haven't gotten anything from them yet. But you of course are hopeful that when you get them, that they're going to look like the team you try to build together. And I get it. This is all a play to make sure that you keep putting assets around Joel Embiid, because in large part, I think that the 76ers are terrified that Embiid's going to ask for a trade and where that can potentially sit them. Now, he did sign a contract extension. He's locked in into the 2028-29 season where he has a player option, right? So he has some time there. You got him locked in. You got Paul George locked in. You got Tyrese Maxey locked in. And they've all done this while still staying relatively beneath the first tax apron. Yes, they're over the first tax apron now, but they're beneath it every year going forward until 2029-30. So they get more and more a little flexibility there, and that flexibility they be willing to take. They're well below the second tax apron at $6.1 million, $18 next year, $47 million the year after. So this team does have an ability, some space in there to be flexible and go after players if they feel the right person comes available. And that's something that the Philadelphia 76ers may do, and it may be worth it in the end of them. This is a team that, unlike the other ones, right, because the Houston Rockets are so young and the Golden State Warriors are so old, the Philadelphia 76ers sit in a place where they're right in the middle. And so I can understand them saying, we are willing to put in some of our own assets between what we have in our own first-round picks and first-round picks that we have from other teams that we can also include. I can understand this team wanting to being willing to take a little bit more of a risk when it comes down to it and be those sellers at the trade deadline if the right pieces come available. But then you got to ask yourself, you got to really give this team some time to see what even are the right pieces for this team, right? You don't really know how this team is going to work out in the dynamic between these players, because your 2 of your top players haven't even played a game for you yet, right? So you don't even know what that's going to look like. You sit at 1-4 right now on the season, but you could be willing to overlook that again because of the injuries that you have here. you do maybe have a spot at the 4, which could be really big for you. You could be looking to fill that 4 spot because right now you're going to have Caleb Martin potentially being the starter there, right? So there's a clear position that they could kind of use when it's all said and down and done with it. So maybe they do. Maybe it's depth, right? We saw last year the Dallas Mavericks make some depth moves that really helped them in their run in the playoffs. So there's a lot of areas that the 76ers could go that make sense for them as far as trying to be those sellers at the trade deadline. And like I said, this is the team that I kind of agree with on this list the most here. But you guys can let me know what you think down below. But let's get into sellers now at the trade deadline. And these are typically teams that have some big contracts or really good players, but they're either tanking teams or teams that are just not good. There are 2 teams that was listed here by Bleacher Report. The first one was the Washington Wizards, naming this. Kyle Kuzma and Jonas Valanciunas cracked the short list of the season's most logical trade candidates, as well as saying that Jordan Poole, if he can sustain his hot start, he's somebody that could also crack the list. They also missed that Corey Kispert, who did sign his extension, could also be on the trade market as well. So it seems like right now, the Washington Wizards, which are in a clear rebuild, are looking at the players that they have that are either under contract long-term or whatever else that could net you something. Jonas Valanciunas, while a player that has dealt with his own injury concerns, you look at big man needs around the league, he's definitely somebody that can be gotten. Kyle Kuzma is a piece that I think a lot of teams could be interested in just because if you bring him in to a stronger system and a stronger team, what you can get out of him as well. So I understand all the players that they could be looking to sell here. And the Wizards, who are in clear rebuild, they're not going to be anything close to being a contender, maybe even for a playing spot anytime soon. It makes a lot of sense for them to be willing to move off of their assets if and when they have value, right? That's something that a lot of teams miss out on at times is they don't strike when players have value. And then by the time they're willing to make a move, it's either too late to really get the value back. So they want to monitor that. And Kyle Kuzma, a player who is under contract to 2026, 27 on a relatively reasonable deal. It actually drops in value every single year. $23 million this year, 21 next season, and then $19 million in the last year of the deal. That actually is a deal that you may want to trade now because you can get more back because teams have to match more money, but also the teams are gaining in benefit as far as the cap savings because the contract is a de-escalating contract. I also look at a player like Malcolm Brogdon, who could become available as an expiring contract. I think he can net you something at the trade deadline. I think that it makes a lot of sense for this Wizards team to be sellers at the trade deadline. Get even younger, rid yourself of pieces that aren't going to fit what you're trying to do long term. And then a player like Kyle Kuzma, who's about to be 30, you got Malcolm Brogdon over 30. These are players that can help teams win right now, if depending on how they view them. And so I can't be mad at the Wizards right now being sellers at the trade deadline. This makes a lot of sense for them. And I think also when you look at their draft compensation as well, right? They have their own pick right now that they get to keep. If it's 1 through 10, it's top 10 protected. Otherwise, the Knicks keep it. So they have no incentive to try to win basketball games anytime soon. They need to be tanking, right? Now, they own their own first-round pick outright in 2027 and 2028. They also own a Portland one in 2029 and their own in 2029. So this is a place where the Wizards could start trying to stack up the assets in themselves, the draft assets, and then just hope that they get it right. Because as we know, the Wizards have never really been a free agent destination for real, right? And so you want to draft well over time, and then also set yourself in a position that maybe you can absorb some bad salary in some of these deals, depending on who you're moving. So makes a lot of sense for the Wizards to be on this list. Let's move to the next team, the Portland Trailblazers as a seller. Now, this one comes from Aaron Fentress of the Oregonian, who says that it's definitely the goal to trade away at least one of Anthony Simons, Jeremy Grant ahead of training camp, but they are still on the board. So they wanted to trade two of those guys. They were not able to do it. They're still on the roster. You look at also adding DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams III, especially as they may be trying to clear the path for Donovan Clingan. And I think this makes a lot of sense. The Portland Trailblazers are clearly in a place where they're trying to build around their recent draft picks. Shaedon Sharpe, right? Scoot Henderson. You're trying to build around those guys. Again, like I said, Donovan Clingan. You're trying to build around those guys. Maybe even Chris Murray, a guy that I like on this roster as far as upside. So it leaves a lot of this roster that you could be looking to move. Anthony Simons makes a lot of sense to move. We know that, right? We've talked about that already. So you got that. You got Robert Williams III, who isn't healthy, but if he can show he can be healthy, he's somebody that can be on that board. And then Jeremy Grant, who seems like he's on the trade block perennially. He's just always a guy that's always available in trade. He's always a guy that puts up numbers as well, but it's not really ever impactful towards winning. So, there's that piece of it. But you got Anthony Simons and Grant. Those both guys are leading you in scoring right now. Scoot Henderson isn't even starting for you right now. He's averaging 13 points. So, I can see where this world in which they're trying to move these guys, and maybe they're featuring them right now, who even Ayton, he's averaging 13 and 11 on this team right now. You're trying to maybe put yourself in a position where you can move those guys. If you can move Anthony Simons, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams, if you can move those guys at some point this season, that really clears the deck for you to give those development reps all to your young guys. It clears the deck for you to bottom out for the next few amount of years. And you could probably get back a nice amount of first-round picks over trading those guys. Probably be some protections on some of those because, those guys aren't necessarily best. Anthony Simons, you better get some unprotected, maybe top 3 protection, but you better get some pretty damn good money after that. He's locked in for the next 2 years as well. So, it makes sense. The Portland Trailblazers are another team that makes sense to be sellers. Now, that's coming out of the Bleacher Report list. Other teams that I do think could be looking to make some pivots out there, if needed. Just depends on how the season shakes out for them. I do think like the Bulls are one that could be looking to move Vooch or Zach LaVine, even though I think they should be looking to keep Zach, but Vooch could be available. He could be somebody that's out there on the market. And don't overlook the Miami Heat either. Whether they be buyers or sellers, I think that they have a chance to be either or at this trade deadline, depending on how this team continues to grow in that direction. So look out for that. But those are mainly the ones in the Eastern Conference. And you look out west, I do think this, and this may be, I don't know if it's controversial, but the Utah Jazz not being on a list of teams that could be sellers are surprising to me. No, they can't move Lauri Markkanen, but they still got a lot of pieces, in my opinion, that could be out on that trade market. You look at Jordan Clarkson is definitely one, once he's healthy, of course. Walker Kessler is another one that could be on that market as well. So I think that those are guys you should kind of look out for that could turn into sellers as well as you're going forth into the season. But let me know what you guys think on all that down below. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything NBA related. And I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.